Let's turn to another big story breaking overnight. The Texas House yesterday passed a new congressional map that could give Republicans 5 more seats after next year's midterm elections. The vote passed along party lines after more than 8 hours of debate. A Texas House Republican who co-sponsored the new congressional map made it clear what this effort is all about.
You want transparency? Here's the U.S. Supreme Court legal transparency. The underlying goal of this plan is straightforward: improve Republican political performance. Each of these newly drawn districts now trend Republican in political performance. While there's no guarantee of an electorate success, Republicans will now have an opportunity to potentially win these districts. According to the U.S. Supreme Court, you can use political performance, and that is what we've done.
Well, I mean, he's just very transparent about that. Said what the plan is. They would now like to know what the plan is to wear a black tie on a black shirt in Texas in August. I just don't know many people in the South that do that. But anyway.
Claire, I think we call that a confession if you were a prosecutor in court.
Yeah, I expected Perry Mason to pop up because he always gets the confessions, right? And, you know, and the sad thing is part of me has to acknowledge the guy's right about this. The legacy of the Roberts Court is going to end up being not what Roberts wanted it to be, because the decisions they made in Shelby and other cases that this couldn't have happened before until the Supreme Court said, no, we're kind of tired of that old idea that you can't bust up black districts to deny black representation. The Supreme Court said, yeah, now you can bust up black districts and try to, you know, basically that's what they're doing around the country.
And by the way,
they're destroying black districts.
The logic of it was, they said, well, you know what, we've moved far enough along. There's basically not racism anymore. We don't need the federal government actually overseeing certain states who've had 200 years of history of racist doctrine.
Yeah, and we now have state representatives, which I was one, represented a very compact district in the city of Kansas City. We've got a guy in Texas that has 500 miles. They extended his district from Austin, Texas, all the way down to the Mexican border and another 500 miles the other way. It's ridiculous trying to keep it from being a Democrat. So these are so gerrymandered. They are so bad. But now the Democrats have to do the exact same thing everywhere they can. The exact same thing.
Well, that brings us to our next point. Republicans currently control 25 of the 38 congressional districts in the state of Texas. Under the new map, President Trump would have carried 30 of 38 seats, all by more than 10 points. The Texas State Senate likely will pass the map this evening, and then Governor Greg Abbott is expected to sign it into law by tomorrow. To Claire's point, former President Barack Obama now sharing his support for California's attempt to counter those mid-decade redistricting efforts by Republicans in Texas. At a fundraiser earlier this week, Obama said he had, quote, tremendous respect for California Governor Gavin Newsom's proposal to redraw his state's congressional maps in response to that effort in Texas. Obama went on to say Democrats must respond effectively to Republican gerrymandering efforts, even if it means breaking with norms, and that Governor Newsom's plan is a, quote, responsible approach. Yesterday, the California Supreme Court said it would not prevent Democrats from moving forward with a plan to redraw congressional districts. After last night's vote in Austin, Governor Newsom posted on social media, writing, quote, it's on, Texas.
You know, Claire, you talked about the districts being drawn, and it's so unrepresentative. And it's so insane. And at the end of the day, you just spur parties, the other party, to do the same thing in other states. And so here we go again. And you know, I've said it before, I'll say it again. People always ask, hey, why are things so divided in Congress? Say it goes back to gerrymandering. I mean, it's that simple. I wish we could. I wish the court could revisit this. I mean, this is so insane. Or I wish we could have a constitutional amendment that would actually, you know, end gerrymandering in the United States Congress and on state levels. It would make such a huge difference in the political discourse out there.
Yeah, safe seats in the House create gridlock, because the only thing a congressman or congresswoman worries about is a primary. It is a disincentive to compromise. It is disincentive to long-term legislation that actually businesses and citizens can rely on, because it swings back and forth based on who has the majority. So this is bad for government.
Right.
But the answer to what Texas is doing is not for us, who say it's bad for government to bring our hands and go, oh, this is bad for government. It's to okay, fine. You want to do it? Let's dance. Let's go. Let's redraw every single state we can as Democrats to create more Democratic seats. That's the only thing we can do right now, because if we don't, this country's representatives in Washington will not reflect the country. It's not even close. I mean, thank goodness we still have senators who have to represent an entire state.
Right.
But what these guys are doing is really, really bad. And by the way, let me just say, I think the Republicans think nobody's paying attention.
Yeah.
I think this will have an impact on turnout, especially among Democratic voters.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, no doubt about it. And Dave Drucker, the other consequence, one of the main consequences I see from gerrymandering is you get the people in the safe seats, and I won't even mention their names, but you get the people in the safest seats. They say the most, especially on the Republican side, they say the most outrageous things. And they raise a ton of money. The more insulting, the more outrageous, the more vulgar, the crazier, the more insane they sound, because they're safe in their district. The more money they raise nationwide, the more their profile goes up. The way they're literally able to stand in the way of anything effective getting done in Congress. And I'm not even talking about on a bipartisan way. How many speakers of the House have Republicans had that have had their plans to move a Republican package forward stopped by people in these districts who can be as extreme and as crazy and as obstructionist as they want, because those are the incentives in this new gerrymandered world?
Well, and we've seen that over the past decade and a half, at least, because all the action, Joe, is in the primaries, right? I mean, how often are we discussing a topic here and you guys ask me what do Republicans think? And my answer is usually they don't want to rock the boat ahead of primary season, because the only place they're going to have a competitive race is in a Republican primary. I think Democrats also have to look out for this in this way, right? There's a lot of angst on the left. Democratic voters, sounding like Republican voters did for years, want their party to fight harder, fight more. And not that they should stand down, not that they shouldn't respond to fire with fire, but this could create the same sort of dynamic in Democratic primaries, where voters have to look over their shoulder, knowing that if they cooperate too much with the other party, if they're willing to compromise, if they don't appear to be fighting hard enough, it's the primary where they can be ousted. And we're in a situation, and look, what's happening now with the further gerrymandering of seats is on the one hand, we could in the short term have some more competitive districts, right? If you look at that Texas map, some is dark red. A lot of it is shaded light red. And that means if this atmosphere goes against the president and his party next year, I've had Republicans in Texas tell me they're worried instead of gaining 5 seats, you could have 10 competitive seats and you could end up losing seats. But in the long term, what you end up with are politicians that don't have a general election to worry about. They have a nomination fight to worry about. And that means they can hold the line, not do anything, get rewarded, and the cycle continues.
By the way, Willie, David brings up a great point that others have brought up all along, and that is they shave it so close that if you have a swing election, this actually backfires, and Democrats have a tidal wave election.
We'll see. It could. I mean, depending on how things go in the next year and a half. John, like almost everything in the Republican Party these days, it comes from the top. This is what Donald Trump wants. He sees over the horizon that next year the midterms could be a problem if he loses the House. That obviously slows down his agenda for the last 2 years of his term. Claire's state of Missouri, Indiana, others now saying, oh, Texas pulled this off. We'd like to do it too. the arms race begins with California, maybe New York, and other Democratic states as
Yeah,
well.
we're going to see it go both red and blue states, it appears. And I have talked to a lot of Democrats last week or so since this really became a story who initially were, we don't want to do this. Like, we think we should be better than this. This isn't good for the country. We don't want to have the fact that there won't be, beholden to congressmen or women beholden to a general electorate. It's just about the primary voters. You're going to see blue state Republicans be wiped out, or red state Democrats be wiped out. Like, that's not good for the democracy. But now that Texas is going forward with this, I think there was a hope that maybe they would back away. But now that they're doing it, Democrats are saying, yeah, the arms race is on. And Will, you underscore what can't be said enough, that this is at the best of the president, who looks at next year, and it's not just about his agenda being knocked down. It's like, if the Democrats get the House, I'm going to have to face investigations again. They're going to have the subpoena power. They might even go impeachment again. He doesn't want to do that. And this Republican Party, short-term thinking. They're serving this president, this White House, even if the consequences down the road are bad for the party and democracy.
Claire, do you think Missouri, Indiana, those states will have similar luck with this? Get this through their state houses?
Yeah, in Missouri, what they're going to do is they're going to destroy Reverend Emanuel Cleaver's district. He's represented Kansas City for a long, long time, beloved in Kansas City. They're going to slice up Kansas City to the point that there will no longer be a black congressman representing Kansas City. We'll be down to one black representative in the state of Missouri, in a state that over 40% of the folks voted for the Democrats, and they were primarily in the urban areas. So you're really distorting what Missouri is when you do the maps this way. I think Missouri will. I don't know about Indiana. I think Indiana has kind of pumped the brakes a little bit because they realize this is a problem because these seats are going to be so much more competitive.
Right.
So, be careful what you wish for here. Texas may be sorry. And by the way, I remember when Michelle Obama, who I love dearly, said, when they go low, we go high. Well, that didn't work out so well. And now you see Gavin Newsom trolling like I never thought I'd see a Democratic governor troll, doing the kinds of things that the Trump folks have been doing now for a long time. And I think Democrats are beginning to catch on. If we play nice, we're going to be on the sidelines. So it's time to throw some punches and do what we have to do to make sure our views are represented in D.C.
We were talking yesterday about Gavin Newsom's new combative style, his mockery of Donald Trump. He actually talked about that yesterday in an interview. We'll play that for you in just a minute.